Dr. Alina Martinez stared at the ice sample under her microscope when the alarm started screaming. The research station shook violently, and coffee spilled across her lab table.
Ah!
She looked up at the red lights flashing on the ceiling and felt her heart pound. Alina, get to the command center now. Commander Jake Thompson's voice crackled through the speaker system. His voice sounded scared, and Jake never got scared. Alina ran through the metal corridors of the New Frontier station. Other scientists and workers were doing the same thing. Everyone looked confused and frightened. The station orbited Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, and nothing exciting ever happened out here, until today. The command center was full of people. Staring at the main screen, Alina pushed through the crowd and saw something that made her legs feel weak.
Massive ships hung in space around Jupiter. They were black and covered in strange symbols that glowed red. The ships were bigger than
anything humans had ever built. How many? Alina whispered to Jake. 57 ships, Jake said, his face pale. They just appeared out of nowhere. No warning, no signals. They just showed up. On the screen, one of the alien ships moved closer to their station. It was easily 10 times bigger than New Frontier. Alina could see weapon ports along its sides, and strange lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Commander Thompson, a deep voice suddenly filled the room. It spoke perfect English, but the accent was wrong. Too deep, too slow. I am War Prime Zethkar of the Kethver Empire. You will listen and obey. Jake stepped forward. This is Commander Jake Thompson of the Human Research Station, New Frontier. Who are you, and what do you want? A harsh laugh echoed through the speakers. We are your masters now, human. Your species will surrender to the Kethver Empire within 72 hours. If you refuse, we will destroy every human world and station. You will serve us, or you will die. Alina felt sick. She grabbed Jake's arm. Can they really do that? Before Jake could answer, the alien continued speaking. To show our power, we will destroy 3 of your cargo ships. Watch and learn what happens to those who resist us. On the screen, 3 human cargo ships floated near Jupiter's rings. They were automated vessels carrying supplies to the outer colonies. Alina watched in horror as bright beams of energy shot out from the alien ships. The cargo vessels exploded in brilliant flashes of light. In seconds, they were gone. 72 hours begin now, War Prime Zethkar said. Surrender or die. The connection ended, leaving the command center in shocked silence. Alina looked around at the frightened faces of her fellow humans. Some were crying. Others just stared at the screen where the cargo ships had been destroyed. Jake, we have to warn Earth, Alina said. Already done, Jake replied. But it will take time for help to arrive. We're on our own out here. Meanwhile on Earth, President. Lisa Crawford sat in the emergency meeting room deep under the White House. The room was full of military officers, scientists, and government officials. Everyone looked worried. Tell me we have options, President Crawford said. General Ryan Brooks shook his head. Madame President, those ships are using technology we don't understand. Their weapons are incredibly powerful. We should consider surrender. Surrender. President Crawford stood up. They want to make slaves of the entire human race. Better slaves than dead, General Brooks replied sadly. Dr. Marcus Johnson, a thin man with gray hair, cleared his throat. There might be another way. Everyone turned to look at him. Dr. Johnson worked for the government's secret weapons program. Most people didn't even know he existed. For the last 30 years, we've been preparing for this day, Dr. Johnson said. We always knew that someday we might meet hostile aliens. We've been building weapons and defenses in secret. President Crawford leaned forward. What kind of weapons? Quantum torpedoes, adaptive shields, and AI-controlled defense systems. We've also been building ships that officially don't exist. General Brooks looked skeptical. Even if that's true, we're facing 57 ships with unknown capabilities. The aliens made one big mistake, Dr. Johnson said with a small smile. They gave us 72 hours to prepare. They think we're weak and frightened. They're about to learn that humans are dangerous when we're cornered. Back on the New Frontier station, Alina was helping Jake organize the evacuation. They were moving all non-essential personnel to the escape pods. "I'm staying," Elena told Jake as they worked. "Elena, you're a scientist, not a soldier. I'm also the only xenobiologist on this station. If we're going to fight these aliens, you need someone who understands how alien life might work." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew Elena was right. She was stubborn and smart, and they would need both qualities to survive. As they worked, more alien ships appeared. The HFY were building a base on Earth's moon. Elena watched through the station's telescopes as alien structures rose from the lunar surface. The base was growing fast, and more ships were arriving every hour. "They're getting ready to attack." "Earth," Jake said. Elena nodded. "But they don't know what they're getting into. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We're not easy to kill." On the main screen, Earth looked peaceful and blue. But Elena knew that down there, millions of humans were preparing to fight for their lives. The aliens thought they were conquering a weak species. They were about to discover that humans were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy when their families were threatened. The countdown had begun. 47 hours until the alien ultimatum expired. 47 hours for humanity to show the HFY Empire that some species fight back harder than expected. Elena looked at the alien ships surrounding Jupiter and felt her fear turn into anger. The HFY wanted a war. They were about to get one they would never forget. Captain Amy Foster gripped the controls of her fighter ship as the deadline approached. 24 hours remained before the alien ultimatum expired. The Luna defense platform floated beside Earth's moon, hidden behind a crater where the aliens couldn't see it. "All pilots ready?" Amy spoke into her helmet microphone. "Ready, Captain," came the replies from her squadron. 12 fighters, each equipped with humanity's newest weapons. The quantum torpedoes were untested in real combat, but they were humanity's best hope. Amy looked at her radar screen. 30 alien ships surrounded the moon, with more arriving every hour. The HFY base was growing larger, with strange towers and weapon platforms rising from the lunar surface. The aliens acted like they owned the moon already. "Remember," Amy told her. "Pilots, hit fast and get out. We need to show them we can fight back." The fighters launched from the hidden platform. Amy felt the familiar push of acceleration as her ship shot toward the alien fleet. The enemy ships were huge compared to her small fighter, but Amy had been flying since she was 18. She knew how to use speed and skill against bigger opponents. "Targets locked," her weapons officer announced through the radio. "Fire," Amy shouted. Blue streaks of energy shot from the human fighters. The quantum torpedoes moved faster than any human weapon before them. Amy watched as 3 of the alien frigates exploded in brilliant flashes. The HFY ships were powerful, but their shields couldn't stop the new human weapons. Warprime. Zethkar stood on the command bridge of his flagship, staring at the burning wreckage of his ships. This was impossible. No species had ever damaged HFY vessels during first contact. The humans were supposed to be weak and primitive. "How many ships did we lose?" he growled at his officers. 3 frigates destroyed. 2 more damaged came. The frightened reply. Zethkar's claws scraped against the metal railing. In over 40 years of conquest, he had never lost ships to a species that hadn't even left their home system. These humans were different. "Increase the bombardment of their cities," he ordered. "Show them what real power looks like." On Earth, the alien attack began at dawn. Energy beams struck major cities around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, and a dozen other cities faced destruction from space. The aliens expected panic and surrender. Instead, something else happened. Tony Garcia, construction engineer from Phoenix, watched the first alien beam hit his city. The energy weapon was powerful enough to level several city blocks. But instead of running away, Tony grabbed his radio and called his construction crew. "Listen up, everyone," Tony said. "Remember those emergency plans the government gave us? Last month, the ones we thought were crazy? Time to use them." Within hours, Tony's crew was moving through the city with heavy equipment. They weren't rebuilding the damaged areas. They were digging them deeper. The city was going underground, just like the emergency plans had instructed. The same thing was happening in cities around the world. Dr. Patricia Williams, A physicist working in Chicago activated the mobile defense systems that had been hidden. Under the city for years, missile launchers rose from building rooftops. Energy shields powered up around important structures. "The aliens think we're just sitting here waiting to die," Patricia told her team as they worked. "They're about to learn that humans prepare for the worst." The Kethfer bombardment continued for hours, but the results confused War Prime Zethkar. The human cities were adapting faster than any species he had ever seen. Underground tunnels appeared overnight. Mobile weapons platforms moved constantly, making them hard to target. "These humans fight like no other species," his tactical officer reported. "They don't retreat or surrender. They change their tactics during battle." Zethkar had conquered 17 star systems. Every other species had either surrendered quickly or fought in predictable ways. The humans were doing neither. Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Martinez, Alina's brother, led a team of Marines toward the alien base on the moon. They wore new powered armor that made them faster and stronger than normal humans. The armor also had special coatings that confused alien sensors. Remember, Stephen told his team through the suit radio? "We're not trying to destroy the base. We just need to prove we can hurt them anywhere." The Marines moved across the lunar surface like metal ghosts. The Kethfer sensors couldn't get a clear reading on them. To the aliens, the humans looked like equipment malfunctions or shadows. Stevens' team reached the outer wall of the alien base. The Marine demolition expert, Sergeant Mike Davis, placed explosive charges on the power generators. The bombs were small but powerful, designed to disable rather than destroy. "Charges set," Mike whispered. "Everyone back to the extraction point." Stephen ordered. The explosions lit up the dark side of the moon. The alien base lost power for several hours, and 3 of their weapon platforms went offline. It was a small victory, but it sent a clear message to the Kethfer. Humans could strike back anywhere. Anytime. Dr. Marcus Johnson stood in his secret laboratory deep under the Colorado mountains. Around him, scientists and engineers worked on captured alien technology. One of the alien communication devices had been recovered from the destroyed frigates. "Can we break their codes?" Johnson asked Dr. Rebecca Adams, his best computer expert. "Better than that," Rebecca replied with a smile. "I can write a virus that will confuse their computer systems." The aliens are advanced, but they've never seen human computer programming. Rebecca's fingers flew over her keyboard. She was creating a digital weapon that would make the alien ships turn against each other. It was sneaky and clever, the kind of warfare that humans specialized in. War Prime Zethkar received reports from across the human solar system. His forces were facing resistance everywhere. The humans had turned asteroids into weapon platforms. Their space stations were firing missiles and launching fighters. Even their cargo ships were fighting back. "This is not how conquest works," Zethkar muttered to himself. "They should be begging for mercy by now." His second-in-command, Subprime Kethfer, approached carefully. "War Prime, perhaps we underestimated this species." Zethkar's eyes glowed, red with anger. "Impossible. We have superior technology and more ships. These humans are just lucky." But deep inside, Zethkar was beginning to doubt. The humans weren't fighting like any species he had ever faced. They were unpredictable, adaptive, and seemingly fearless. Every time he thought he understood their tactics, they changed them, Captain. Amy Foster landed her fighter back on the Luna defense platform. Her squadron had destroyed 5 more alien ships during their second attack. The enemy was starting to spread out their formation, making them harder to hit, but also less effective. "Good work, people," Amy told her pilots. "Yeah, we're showing them that humans don't give up." As Amy removed her helmet, she looked at Earth through the station's windows. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, but she knew that millions of humans were fighting for their lives down there. The aliens wanted to make them slaves. But humans had something the Kethfer didn't understand. They had the will to fight back against impossible odds. And that will was about to teach the galaxy that some species were more dangerous than they appeared. 3 weeks had passed since the alien attack began. War Prime Zethkar stood on his command bridge, watching reports flow in from across the human solar system. Every report brought bad news. His forces were losing ships daily, and the humans showed no signs of surrender. "War Prime," his communications officer announced, The third battle fleet has arrived from Kethver space. Zethkar felt relief wash over him. The third battle fleet contained 200 ships, including heavy cruisers and battle carriers. Surely this would be enough to crush the stubborn humans. Have them take position around the human homeworld. Zethkar ordered. We will show these primitives what real military power looks like. But as the Kethver reinforcements moved toward Earth, they encountered something unexpected. Space around the human solar system was no longer empty. Weapon. Platforms floated near asteroids. Missile stations orbited the gas giant planets. The humans had turned their entire star system into a fortress. Admiral Karen O'Brien stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the alien reinforcements approach. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were sharp as steel. Behind her, the secret human fleet waited in the shadow of Saturn's rings. All ships. This is Admiral O'Brien, she spoke into her communicator. Time to show our visitors what we've really been building out here. 50 human warships emerged from hiding. Places throughout the solar system, these weren't the small fighters and patrol boats the aliens had been fighting. These were full-size battleships and cruisers, equipped with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created. The lead ship was the Earth's Pride, a massive vessel that had been under construction for 5 years. In reality, it had been completed months ago and hidden in the asteroid belt. Its quantum cannons could punch through any known armor, and its AI-controlled defense systems could track thousands of targets at once. Engineer. Cole Thompson watched from the mining station. He had helped convert into a weapon platform. Cole was Jake's cousin, and he had spent the last 3 weeks turning peaceful mining equipment into instruments of war. Fire the railguns, Cole ordered his team. The mining stations or launchers had been modified to fire metal slugs at incredible speeds. The projectiles weren't fancy, but they hit with the force of small meteors. 3 Kethver cruisers exploded as the railgun rounds tore through their hulls. Direct hits, reported Cole's assistant, Maria Santos. The aliens didn't expect us to weaponize our industrial equipment. Similar attacks happened throughout the solar system. Human creativity had turned every piece of space infrastructure into a potential weapon. Communication satellites fired laser beams, cargo ships launched swarms of missiles, even space elevators became giant kinetic weapons, dropping heavy loads. Onto alien ships below, Dr. Rebecca Adams worked furiously in her computer lab on Earth. She had finished her virus program and was ready to test it on the alien fleet. The virus was designed to make Kethver computers malfunction in subtle ways. Uploading the virus now, Rebecca announced to her team. The computer virus spread through the alien communication network like wildfire. Within hours, Kethver ships began experiencing problems. Their navigation systems gave wrong directions. Their weapons fired at empty space. Some ships even started attacking their own allies by mistake. War Prime. Zethkar watched in growing horror as his fleet fell apart. Around him, ships were exploding, getting lost, or simply shutting down. His communications officer was screaming reports of system failures across the entire fleet. How are they doing this? Zethkar roared. We have the best technology in the galaxy. So, Prime. Kethver approached carefully. Warprim, our computer experts say the humans have infected our systems with some kind of digital weapon. They are using our own technology against us. This was impossible, Zethkar thought. The Kethver had conquered dozens of species, and none of them had ever turned captured technology into weapons so quickly. These humans were adapting faster than any species had a right to. Captain Daniel Rodriguez piloted his cruiser, the Texas Ranger, toward the largest Kethver ship in the enemy fleet. The alien dreadnought was 3 times bigger than his vessel, but Daniel had a plan that would make size irrelevant. All crew to escape pods, Daniel announced over the ship's intercom. We're going to ram that big ugly ship and make it count, his crew protested, but Daniel was determined. The alien dreadnought was the command ship for this sector of the Kethver fleet. If he could destroy it, the other alien ships would lose coordination. Daniel waited until his crew had evacuated, then aimed his ship directly at the alien vessel's reactor section. The Texas Ranger accelerated to full speed, its engines glowing white-hot. The Kethver dreadnought tried to turn away, but it was too slow and too big. The collision lit up space like a second sun. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball that could be seen from Earth. Daniel Rodriguez died in the explosion, but his sacrifice allowed Admiral O'Brien's fleet to destroy 20 more alien ships in the confusion that followed. The battle spread across multiple star systems as human forces pursued fleeing Kethfer ships. What had started as a simple conquest was turning into the largest space war in galactic history. On Mars, General Kate Murphy organized the defense of the human colonies. The Red Planet had been transformed into a fortress world with underground bunkers and hidden weapon emplacements. When Kethfer ground forces tried to land, they found themselves facing human soldiers who knew every rock and crater on the planet. "These aliens fight like they're in a parade," General Murphy told her. "Officers. They line up in neat formations and expect us to do the same. Time to show them how humans really fight." The human defenders used guerrilla tactics that confused the alien ground forces. They attacked from hidden positions, disappeared into tunnel networks, and struck again from unexpected directions. The Kethfer soldiers were brave, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to fight fair. War Prime Zethkar found himself in an impossible situation. His forces were scattered across the human solar system, taking heavy losses everywhere. The humans weren't just defending their worlds, they were hunting his ships like predators. For the first time in his military career, Zethkar considered the possibility of retreat. But the Kethfer Empire had never retreated from a conquest. To do so now would destroy his reputation and possibly his life. "Send a message to the Kethfer High Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements. Tell them we are facing a species unlike any we have encountered before." The message would take weeks to reach Kethfer space, and weeks more for reinforcements to arrive. Zethkar wondered if he would still be alive when help finally came. Dr. Alina Martinez watched the battle reports from her laboratory on the New Frontier station. The humans were winning, but the cost was enormous. Thousands of people had died, and entire cities lay in ruins. Yet humanity fought on with a determination that impressed even her. "Jake," she said to Commander Thompson, "I think the aliens are starting to understand what they've gotten themselves into." Jake nodded grimly. They expected to conquer a weak species. Instead, they've awakened something they don't know how to fight. The war was far from over, but the balance of power was shifting. The Kethfer Empire was learning that some species became more dangerous when threatened, not less. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would be remembered for generations. 6 months had passed since the war began. Commander Ashley Johnson piloted her stealth ship through the darkness between stars, far from any human world. Her mission was simple but dangerous: find and destroy Kethfer supply ships before they could reach the battle zones. Ashley's ship, the Silent Hunter, was designed for long missions in deep space. It could travel for months without refueling, something the Kethfer had thought impossible. The aliens built their ships for quick strikes and fast returns to base. They never expected to fight an enemy that could hunt them in the empty void. Between worlds, target acquired, Ashley whispered to her crew. Kethfer supply convoy, for ships. The alien vessels moved slowly through space, carrying weapons and food to Kethfer battle fleets. They had no idea that human ships were already hunting them. Light years from Earth. Ashley's ship fired quantum torpedoes from long range. The Kethfer supply ships exploded one by one, their cargo scattered into space. Another alien fleet would go hungry tonight. "That's the 15th convoy this month," reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Carl Murphy. "The aliens are running out of supplies." Ashley smiled grimly. The Kethfer had expected a short war against a weak enemy. Instead, they found themselves fighting across multiple star systems against humans who refused to give up. Every supply ship destroyed, every fuel depot attacked, made the alien position weaker. On Earth, Ambassador Paul Evans sat across from a group of alien visitors. But these weren't Kethford warriors. They were representatives of species that had been conquered by the Kethford Empire years ago. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin. The Morlocks were short and covered in fur. Both species had been slaves for decades. "You humans have done something we thought impossible," said Zephyrian Elder Veltar. "Wow, You have defeated Kethfer fleets in open battle. Dr. Susan Clark, a specialist in alien psychology, translated for the ambassador. She had spent months learning the languages of former Kethfer subjects, preparing for this moment. We offer you alliance, continued Veltar. My people remember freedom. We will fight alongside humans if you help us reclaim our worlds. Ambassador. Evans nodded carefully. We don't want to rule other species. We just want the Kethfer to leave us alone. If you help us, we'll help you become free again. Similar meetings were happening across the galaxy. The Kethfer Empire had ruled through fear and superior technology, but they had made enemies of every species they conquered. Now those enemies saw hope in humanity's resistance. General Kate Murphy stood on the bridge of the human battleship. New Texas, as it approached the Kethfer-controlled world of Kepler-4 for to be, the planet had been conquered 3 years ago, and its native population enslaved. Today, humanity would attempt something no species had ever done: liberate a world from Kethfer control. All ships prepare for orbital bombardment, General Murphy ordered. Remember, we're here to free the natives, not destroy their world. Human fleet had learned to fight differently than the Kethfer, where the aliens used overwhelming force and destroyed everything in their path. Humans used precision strikes and careful planning. They wanted to liberate worlds, not conquer them. The battle for Kepler-4 to be lasted 3 days. Kethfer orbital platforms fired down at the human fleet, while human ships targeted only military installations. On the planet's surface, native Kepleroids rose up against their alien masters when they saw human ships in the sky. Major Alex Rivera led the ground assault against the main Kethfer fortress. His soldiers fought alongside Kepleroid rebels who knew every hiding place on their own world. The aliens found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered by an enemy that understood the terrain better than they did. These humans fight like demons, reported Kethfer Ground Commander Zorthak to his superiors. They don't retreat when they should. They don't surrender when they're surrounded. They just keep attacking until we're dead or they are. The fortress fell after 18 hours of fighting. Major Rivera watched as Kepleroid civilians emerged from hiding, seeing their own sky free of alien ships for the first time in years. Some of them were crying, others cheered and waved at the human soldiers. This is what we're fighting for, Rivera told his troops. Freedom for everyone, not just humans. War Prime Zethkar received the news of Kepler-442b's liberation in his command center. He had lost an entire world, something that had never happened in Kethfer history. Worse, reports were coming in of uprisings on other conquered worlds. The humans were inspiring rebellion across the galaxy. War Prime Subprime Kelver approached nervously. Our younger officers are beginning to question the war. They say, the humans are too dangerous to fight. Zethkar turned to stare at his subordinate. Are you telling me that Kethfer warriors are afraid of these primitives? Not afraid, War Prime, but ... confused. The humans don't fight like any enemy we've faced. They adapt their tactics constantly. They use psychological warfare. They turn our own weapons against us. As some of our officers think we should negotiate a peace treaty. The idea of negotiating with humans made Zethkar's blood burn with rage. The Kethfer Empire had never negotiated with conquered species. They demanded surrender, or they delivered death. There was no middle ground, but deep in his heart, Zethkar was beginning to understand that this war was different. The humans had advantages that no Kethfer strategist had anticipated. They could fight for months without resupply. They could adapt to any situation. Most importantly, they seemed to get stronger and more determined as the war continued. Dr. Elena Martinez studied captured Kethfer prisoners in her research facility. The aliens were physically impressive, standing over 7 feet tall with thick armor-like skin. But psychologically, they were showing signs of stress that worried her. They're not used to losing, Alina explained to Commander Jake Thompson. The Kethfer have conquered so many worlds that defeat is completely foreign to them. When they lose battles, it shakes their entire worldview. Jake nodded thoughtfully. So what happens when a species that's never lost a war suddenly starts losing one? They begin to doubt everything they believe about themselves, Elena replied. Look at these brain scans. Prisoners show signs of severe psychological trauma. It's not from physical wounds, but from the shock of being defeated by what they considered an inferior species. The psychological impact of human resistance was spreading through the entire Kethfer military. Soldiers who had never questioned their superiority were now afraid to engage human forces. Officers who had always expected easy victories were planning defensive strategies for the first time in their careers. Captain Maya Rodriguez, sister of the late Daniel Rodriguez, led a raid on a Kethver fuel depot in the Centauri system. Her brother had died ramming his ship into an alien dreadnought, and Maya carried his memory into every battle. For Daniel, she whispered as her ship launched missiles at the alien installation. The depot exploded in a massive fireball, taking with it enough fuel to supply a Kethver battle fleet for months. Maya's ship escaped into hyperspace before enemy reinforcements could arrive. Similar raids were happening throughout Kethver space. Human ships appeared without warning, struck critical targets, and vanished before the aliens could respond. The Kethver found themselves fighting a war on 100 different fronts against an enemy that could strike anywhere at any time. War Prime Zethkar stood alone in his private chambers, staring out at the stars. For the first time in his long military career, he was facing the possibility of total defeat. The humans had turned what should have been a simple conquest into the most devastating war in Kethver history. Reports arrived daily of lost battles, destroyed supply lines, and liberated worlds. The Kethver Empire was not just losing the war against humanity. It was losing control of its entire territory as subject species rebelled with human support. What have we awakened? Zethkar asked himself quietly. The answer was becoming clear. To anyone who studied human behavior, the Kethver had awakened a species that treated war not as conquest, but as survival. And humans, when fighting for their survival, were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. 2 years after the first alien ship appeared near Jupiter, Commander Nathan Bell led the final assault on the Kethver homeworld's orbital defenses. His fleet of human and allied ships moved through space like a deadly swarm, targeting the massive weapon platforms that protected the alien capital. All ships, focus fire on the primary shield generator, Nathan ordered through his communicator. The battle was fierce but brief. The Kethver defenses had been weakened by months of guerrilla attacks and supply shortages. When the orbital shields fell, the path to the planet below lay open. But President Lisa Crawford had given Nathan strict orders: no bombardment of civilian targets. Humanity would win this war without becoming monsters. On Earth, President Crawford sat in her office with Dr. Jennifer Scott, who had become humanity's chief expert on alien psychology. Through the window, they could see construction crews rebuilding the parts of Washington that had been destroyed in the early days of the war. The Kethver are requesting peace negotiations, Dr. Scott reported. Their high command wants to meet with our representatives. President Crawford nodded slowly. After everything they've done, part of me wants to refuse. But that's not who we are as a species. Psychological profiles suggest the Kethver are completely broken, Dr. Scott continued. They've never faced total military defeat before. Their entire culture is built around being the strongest species in the galaxy. Now they know they're not. The peace talks took place on a neutral space station in the Vega system. War Prime Zethkar sat across from Admiral Karen O'Brien, the human who had defeated his fleets time and again. He looked older than when the war began, his proud bearing replaced by something that resembled fear. You could have destroyed our homeworld, Zethkar said quietly. Your ships were in position to bombard our cities. Why didn't you? Admiral O'Brien studied the alien leader. Zethkar was still physically impressive, but his spirit seemed broken. Because we're not like you, she replied. We didn't come to your worlds to conquer them. We came to teach you that conquest has consequences. Teach us. Zethkar's voice carried confusion and anger. You have defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy. What more is there to learn? That there are species in this galaxy you cannot simply dominate, Admiral O'Brien said calmly. That strength isn't just about having bigger weapons or more ships. Real strength comes from the willingness to fight for your values, even when the odds are against you. The peace negotiations lasted for weeks. The human demands were simple but devastating to Kethver pride: complete withdrawal from all human space, reparations to conquered species, release of all slaves, and the establishment of neutral zones between human and Kethfer territory. Ambassador Paul Evans worked with Dr. Susan Clark to ensure that other species were represented in the talks. The Zephyrians, Morlocks, Kepleroids, and dozens of other former Kethfer subjects would regain their freedom. "We're not asking for your surrender," Evans explained to the Kethfer delegation. "We're asking for your word that this kind of unprovoked aggression will end." Zethkar struggled with the concept. "If we are not expanding our territory, if we are not conquering new worlds, what is the purpose of our military?" Dr. Clark leaned forward. "Protection, exploration, scientific research. There are thousands of ways to use military resources that don't involve enslaving other species." The final treaty was signed in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. Zethkar's claws shook as he marked the document that officially ended the Kethfer Empire's age of conquest. For the first time in their history, the Kethfer would have to find a new way to interact with other species. 5 years after the war ended, Captain Maya Rodriguez commanded the diplomatic vessel Harmony as it approached a former Kethfer world. Her mission was to establish the first permanent human embassy in what had once been enemy territory. The planet below showed signs of dramatic change. Where once there had been massive military installations, now there were research facilities and trade centers. The Kethfer were slowly learning to interact with other species as equals rather than subjects. "Captain," her communications officer announced, "we're receiving a message from the surface. It's from War Prime Zethkar himself." Maya felt a chill. Zethkar had been responsible for the deaths of thousands of humans, including her brother Daniel. But the peace treaty required both sides to work together now. "Put him through," Maya said. Zethkar's image appeared on the main screen. Looked different than he had during the war, less threatening and more thoughtful. "Captain Rodriguez, I welcome you to Kethfer Prime. Your embassy facility is prepared." "Thank you, War Prime," Maya replied formally. "I knew your brother," Zethkar said quietly. "He died with honor, fighting for his people. In Kethfer culture, we would call him a true warrior." Maya felt tears in her eyes but kept her voice steady. "He died fighting for freedom. That's what humans do." Dr. Elena Martinez walked through the halls of the new Interspecies Research Institute on Mars. Around her, human and alien scientists worked together on projects that would have been impossible before the war. The institute was studying everything from alien biology to new forms of faster-than-light travel. Dr. Martinez called Dr. Veltar, the Zephyrian scientist who had become her research partner. "The quantum resonance experiments are showing promising results." Lena smiled. "Good. If we can perfect this technology, travel between star systems will be much faster and safer for everyone." The war had brought destruction and death, but it had also brought the galaxy together in ways no one had expected.
Good species that
Had never met, were now sharing knowledge and working toward common goals in her private office. Alina kept a photo of the new frontier station where the war had begun. Commander Jake Thompson was in the picture, along with the other researchers who had faced the first alien attack. Some of them hadn't survived the war, that their sacrifice had led to this new era of cooperation. Alina reflected on what humanity had accomplished. They hadn't just defeated a superior military force. They had fundamentally changed how the galaxy thought about strength and conquest. The scars left on Kethfer society weren't physical wounds that would heal. They were psychological and cultural changes that would last for generations. The Kethfer had learned that their assumptions about weaker species were wrong. They had discovered that true strength came not from domination but from the willingness to fight for survival and values. Most importantly, they had realized that a species didn't need to be the strongest to change the course of galactic history. Captain Nathan Bell stood on the observation deck of the space station where the peace treaty had been signed. The transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of different species docked at the station's ports. Humans, Kethfer, Zephyrians, and many others worked together in ways that would have been impossible just a few years ago. His communicator buzzed with a message from Earth. New species were making contact with humanity every month. stories of the war, and curious about the species that had defeated the Kethfer Empire. They approached not as supplicants or enemies, but as potential equals. Nathan smiled as he read the reports. Humanity had won more than a war. They had won respect, admiration, and most importantly, they had proven that any species could stand up to bullies if they had the courage to fight back. The scars that humans had given the Kethfer weren't meant to cripple or destroy. They were meant to teach a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. Some species become more dangerous when threatened, not less. Sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when to stop fighting and start building something better.